anything goes. You don't know what's coming at you. And she just laughed and said, yeah, bring it. And so that's pretty much who Elizabeth is. Very talented, very thoughtful person. And I think you'll appreciate her input. So Elizabeth, welcome to the Friday Morning Time.
What an honor to be here with you, Charlie. Thank you so much.
So tell everybody who you are. Who is Elizabeth Klein?
Oh, that's a good question. That seems to change pretty often these days. I would say that the big, the sitting next to someone on an airplane response would be, I'm an artist, I'm a coach. I've been a Presbyterian pastor for 30 years. I'm a mom, a wife, equestrian, a dog trainer and lover. And I love to walk. My phrase is "Solvitur ambulando," which is an old one that essentially means it is solved by walking, and I believe that.
I do too, Elizabeth. So first of all, what's behind you off your right shoulder there?
So this is a painting I'm working on for a family in Minnesota, and my studio is my kitchen, so I can cook as well as paint, mixing this stuff together. And there's just good lighting in here, so it's a good place to have a conversation. And it's always fun to have some beauty around you. I think it really feeds our soul, especially when we feel unmoored. To have something beautiful to think about and to look at helps us. So I thought, put something that you like in your set. So that's what I did this morning.
So just a little fun thing, just because you told me, and it's still in my head, and it blew my mind a little, about your son, your daughter, and your husband, what they're engaged in.
Yeah, our COVID workouts have been wonderful because our daughter lives socially distanced from us on the first floor of the house because she is still, as a 22-year-old, having some social time, hopefully safely, but so she's a kinesiology major and decided when we couldn't go to the gym anymore, we needed to have a home workout plan. So she and my husband started a push-up, sit-up challenge. And I think they're approaching 200,000 push-ups. And I don't know how many crunches and sit-ups and planks, but they are hitting it hard and they are so strong. They motivated me to get going with it. And so we're definitely doing the home workout thing, and it's been wonderful.
Well, and just for fun, you're an athlete, because I've been told, and I know you, and you've entered it. So you're approaching what number?
Well, yeah, my push-up sit-up, I've only been doing for 2 months, so that's not my number, but I'm approaching 3,000 COVID miles in terms of hiking, walking, all that kind of stuff.
That's inspiring. I just wanted to highlight that. That's inspiring.
Well, it's been great. I don't know how I would have survived without it, truly. And so being outside right now.
Speaking of survival, so we have been, and we kind of stumbled into this a little bit. We've been highlighting different community leaders, and we touched on one participant who spoke about mental health, and a lot of people in the audience responded and were interested. And so we started down that road and have been on, like Michelle said, a 3-part series. This is part 3, mental health, especially during this time. What's your sense, essentially, of the environment, the challenges people face right now? What are you seeing?
Well, it's really interesting because I think in our lifetime, it's the first time where we've had so many things that have been divisive. And a lot of people are talking about that being a result of social media and the algorithms that kind of fuel us into camps. And so a lot of people are anxious because of the way conversation has been polarized. They're anxious because of COVID and the very real threat, particularly for those that are immune compromised or don't have access to the kind of mental or the physical health care. And we have this economic roller coaster going on. So it's like this triple threat happening right now to us, where we really don't know what our jobs will look like if we have jobs right now. We don't know what the winter's going to be like for COVID. We're not sure what the economy will do and this tremendous debt we're taking on. So there's a lot of social anxiety. And of course, I think that mental health is tied into our physical health. And so if we don't have our same physical routines, it amplifies whatever we're experiencing, to the positive or the negative. So
that's pretty scary, actually, when you think about it. And I've felt it from a lot of people. So that's the reality. How do we cope with that? So let's focus on that for a little while for today. How would you say, what are some things people can do to start taking care of themselves?
Well, Charlie, you and I have had a history of athletics our whole lives. And we know as athletes that what you practice is what you become. So if we're practicing a negative spiral, we're going to have that play out in our lives. It's just whatever you do over and over in your head and in your body makes manifest in your life. By the same token, and with great hope, if we practice positive, healthy, spirit-giving steps, we build those muscles. We build those synapses in our brain to be able to lean into a positive, nurturing experience. The New York Times had an article this week where it said, we need to be people that know how to deal with disappointment because every generation before us has dealt with something really big. This is our opportunity as people, as parents, as neighbors, to help each other through a time that's very unmoored. We can be the stability for each other. And that starts with our own personal practices and what we're doing over and over, what we're saying in our brains over and over, and what we're doing in our daily lives is going to play out in how we experience what lies ahead.
So I love that, to practice. But how do people who don't do that, and if they're isolated, we're seeing a lot of isolation and, to be honest, a lot of anxiety, as you said. I'm experiencing it in my own circles of people. So how do they get out of this to practice it?
Oh, it's so important, I think, that we set some boundaries around what's feeding into us. So one of the most important things I think that people can do is get off screens a big portion of each day. And if they're doing it for work, get off all the other chatter that goes on, because the chatter is set up to hook you into a rhythm. These people that do the marketing for social media and for the news know that one of the biggest things to get people to give attention is fear. So they're hooking into that fear center of our brains for ratings, essentially for profit. And it's up to us to make decisions. No, I'm going to limit my exposure to that. And I'm going to increase my exposure to the things that give me resilience. Because resilience is one of the key components of getting through any stressful time. And what that is going back to that time in your childhood or in any experience in your life where you were in the flow, where things just worked for you. And you want to go back to little practices today that get you in that flow. Something with a beginning, middle, and end. And that's really important because when we have this endless view of what the future might look like, we have to have tangible things that we can cling to, like making cookies that we love, like bringing a meal to a senior neighbor, like going on a walk in a place that's really beautiful, because those build our resilience and enable us to have the energy we need for whatever comes to us. So I would say that taking the time to limit and focusing into the things that give you life are essential right now.
So what I just heard, a person could start this journey on their own.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, you don't need anyone to do the things that really give you life. For some, it's just listening to beautiful music, a symphony that gives you life, or a hip hop artist, whatever your musical genre. Even doing something simple in your yard, like planting a winter flower or beautifying a little area, something that you can see the results of, really give us life and restoration. Now, I would also say that there's a big part of connecting that's very important for those of us that have been isolated in COVID, to reach out, not to wait for someone to come to us, but to write a card, make a phone call, learn how to use the Zoom meetings so that you can see and stay in relationship. Because really, of all the parts of our brain, the thing that makes us happiest is when we're able to give to each other. That has the biggest payoff. So we have to connect in order to give. So I would say that every single person, no matter what your situation, can give some encouragement to someone else. And that enables us to connect and feel a part of the big picture.
So before I want to hold on to that, because connection and community, I want to talk about that. But before that, I still want to talk about the individual. One of the things I you shared on that design team that I referenced, you did an opening about courage and about Joshua, and I loved it. But people who are isolated or are stuck a little bit, it's tough. So you're talking about steps to take, but it is still tough to break that cycle that you talked about. If you could just elaborate a little bit more, because I want to give people a little encouragement who are still in that individual state.
Well, because I'm a science geek, I got to do some physics. So you've got a rock, and the rock, it takes a lot of energy to move. But once you start moving the rock, it becomes easier and easier. So you got to take that initial step to get that thing moving. And for many of us, that requires some sort of discussion with someone else, like that accountability partnership. So that you talk to a friend and say, you know what, I'm spending too much time on the news. Let's make a deal that we'll set a timer and limit ourselves to 20 minutes for a week. And you've got a partner that's holding you accountable. And you have someone that is with you in realizing that we can do things differently than we've done before. But that initial energy needs something really intentional to get that ball moving. Now, the aloneness, basically, with our world and all the connections, is something that we have to set aside our fears. And fear for us can put us in a cycle of freezing. A lot of people in life talk about fight or flight. You see a bear, and you're either going to fight the bear or you're going to run away from the bear. But what we don't realize is what happens most of the time in nature. And I spend so much time in nature that I've seen this over and over again. It's not fight or flight, it's freeze. We freeze like that little bunny that the hawk is about to fly into. And so it takes community sometimes, or prayer and the spirit, to get us to take that very first step. Because as I talked about in the devotion, the opposite of fear and despair is really courage. It's taking that step. It's realizing that if I just do something small in the right direction, the momentum will start and the energy will increase and my life will change. People forget we really have the power to change how we think and how we live. Our mind is as much a muscle as any other part of our bodies.
I love that. You know, I was trying to get you there. I didn't know how to get you. Took yourself there. So thank you for doing that. That courage piece is important. So let's go now to this connection, community. You've been working on a design team about community cafe. So we got the courage, you move the rock, it's got a little momentum. Connection. Speak more about the power of community and connection and how a person can get connected, seek connection. You mentioned some really good things there, so let's build on that.
Well, one of the things that the Y has done so well is that people have a community when they come and work out. And that's happened in buildings. But this whole community cafe is so exciting because it's going to happen now in a whole broader platform, so that whatever you're interested in, you can find other people to have those conversations, to gain expertise, and to have opportunities for service, which really is the whole triangle of the human experience. You know, we want to learn, we want to grow, we want to serve. That's why we're here. And if you're feeling stuck, I just have to say that the people at the Y can help connect you. There's so many people in the area that can help connect you. People like to have other people and help them fit into their lane. And so I just want to encourage people to reach out. And remember, a lot of people will say, well, I tried that. Successful people don't try something just once and give up. By and large, the Nobel Prize winners, the Olympic athletes in every lane, the people that succeed are not the people who were the best initially. They were the people that didn't give up, the people that kept leaning in, the people that say to themselves, I'm worth this. This project is worth this. I'm not going to let things get in my way. And when you have that attitude, you refuse to let failure be an option. And that's something you can develop, and you can read from people that have done that. You can get inspired by other people, movies, books, conversations of those in the community that are heroes. You know, like there's just so many people around us that have done incredible things, and we can get energy from that to have our own story be something really noteworthy.
Boy, that came to life right there for me. That was awesome, Elizabeth. So, the individual, the courage, I love not being knocked down, staying down, getting back up. What's out there for people right now? There's, like you mentioned, fear of not having a job and the economic, and what's out? What are the resources for people right now to seek?
Yeah, we have, there's so many mental health professionals and free options. There's all sorts of apps now and YouTubes. I have a little YouTube channel with a breath prayer, which is really helpful to kind of reset when anxiety starts to brim up. The thing about our breath is it connects to our blood pressure and our whole nervous system. So even just a simple breath prayer where you breathe in for 3 and hold it for 5 and release through your mouth for 7, having that inhale shorter than your exhale calms everything down, centers you, gives you some energy. And I invite you to go to the Klein Inc. on YouTube and try the breath prayer. It's free. There's a lot of other free resources to help you just calm and center. Because when we have a lot of people have plague fatigue now, so that we've done stuff and we're just tired of it. We want to go back to our old routines. So we need to spend some extra time giving ourselves that centering, energetic practice. And that requires probably for many of us doing things a little differently, putting a new routine into our lives, but it's absolutely worth it to make that change.
So I'm trying to build all the steps that you've given us, that initial remembering when you were a kid and connecting to something like cooking or listening to music or painting or now breathing, setting up a routine. Would you add anything else to that routine?
Yeah, definitely connect. You got to connect with a friend and if you don't have a real friend, I swear some of my best friends are dead authors. They're just people that, C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, Chesterton, Dorothy Sayers, some of these people that were so wise and got us through World War II. I go back to them and I get energy because can you think of anything more horrific than living through World War II in London? Being bombed every single night. These people know what it is to have resilience. Mm-hmm. And they talk about how one of the greatest medicines we have is nature, and how just getting outside, even looking at a tree, changes our experience of life. We don't even have to go outside, just go to the window. But when we go outside and breathe the gift of God's creation and walk with these bodies that were given as a gift, we change our perspective and our trajectory. And the other greatest medicine we have is food. During COVID, I take a huge bag of spinach, raw spinach, and I eat it on my way to do errands, because there's something about greens and getting, lowering sugar, which is really hard for us because the whole system is set up for us to eat sugar. But if we can lower our sugar and increase our greens, and for many of us, it works better to just increase the good thing than we don't want the bad thing as much. It gives us, it's medicine. Like we have food as free medicine. And so we have to realize that we have some choices we can make to do things different than we've done it before. And this is a great time to reset.
So I kind of want to keep going down this community cafe a little bit further. So you have been involved in this design team. And it is, maybe tell us what you think of this and explain it a little bit more, because some people may not know what a community cafe is.
Well, Charlie's been working with Janelle Nelson, who's an amazing director of mission for the Y, and Wallace, who's this mastermind creator, to do this cafe where people can come and be nourished, to connect, to find others who are interested in in exploring certain things, to have educational opportunities available, and to have service opportunities so that you really can have the whole human experience within this Y Cafe. We're working on it being very user-friendly and beautiful and a delightful experience. So it's been a total joy to meet with the team that Janelle and Charlie have put together and to see the visionary aspect of, we can connect in all sorts of new ways through technology. Why don't we use it for good instead of for division? And I love being a part of this mission. And it's very exciting to think about the launch and the beta tests that are going to start pretty soon.
So we're going to take questions now, but I want you to have in the back of your mind as a close, like what does a person do to generate hope, and a takeaway from today, one thing a person can do. So that's your final statement that I'm going to have you give the audience. But Michelle, I'm going to have you ask Elizabeth some of the questions that are coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this. This has been incredible so far. First, just a comment from our audience that says, thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing specific steps and ways to move forward. So I wanted to pass that along. First question for Elizabeth, can you give us examples of how we can help others find hope in this season?
Oh my gosh, yes. One of the first things we do when people are really blue is we listen. The aspect and the connection you have in just listening to someone and not trying to solve their problem enables a release that is unbelievable for us. Many times when a friend or a beloved person is in despair, we go right to fixing. And I know I'm a fixer. I can fix your problem, but I can't fix your problem. Your problem is your journey, and it's your invitation to learn and grow. So someone just listening and affirming that it's hard. Do you know what a gift it is to just say to someone, that sounds really hard. I'm here in it with you. So once we listen and then have that presence of concern and energy, that enables people to get to their own place of beginning to problem solve. And that is really our human experience. Like we're on a path where if it was all easy, we would never grow. So we don't want to fix it for other people because then they don't get that growth that they need. But we want to be present and offer our support and walking alongside of them.
Thank you. A question for both of you. We'll start with Elizabeth and then go to Charlie. How do you personally find hope?
Well, knowing that there's a bigger plan going on. That in 50 years, we're going to look back at this and it might be a page in a history book. It's not going to be everything. That I have lived my whole life understanding that my job is to understand God and to praise him to the end of my days, that's why we're here. So when I look at it with that bigger picture, I understand that, yeah, things are dark and they have always gotten dark and beautiful things come through them. In every single instance in human history, something that is horrific has been followed by something that's beautiful. And so I cling to that. I cling to the fact that God does not leave us alone and that there is more to write in this story than we understand right now.
Oh, that is such a good reminder. We need to hear that daily right now, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. There's this is a speck in the whole picture. But I do like what Elizabeth said right before, is that we grow through adversity and that we grow with each other. It's not a solitary journey, and that we help each other through this. The hope I get also is from the fact that if I'm struggling, someone else is reaching out for me and I can do the same for them. And that energizes me and it feels like I'm not alone. So that's where I get a lot of hope every day.
Appreciate that. And it sounds like much of what you're talking about also translates to the community cafe you described earlier, and creating a space to make this happen and facilitate and have the the Y and other partners really create this for people. So thank you. I think, Charlie, I think you stole my last question. So I'll start with you and then turn it back over to you to ask Elizabeth. But Charlie, for you, what's the most important thing for people to take away today from what we've heard?
Yeah, I loved her opening, actually, Elizabeth. I'm stealing your stuff, Elizabeth, but I did like.
I give it to you.
I just like that there was a two-part. One, just when it doesn't work, if you don't find success, you have to keep trying. And I also like reconnecting with things that bring you joy. I really love that. And that you have to practice it to get better at it. And that was a great sequence that Elizabeth shared with us. I thought was something that you can take away from today.
Great, thank you. Well, I'll turn it over to you, Charlie, for the final question. Elizabeth, it's been such a joy to listen to you today.
Elizabeth,
thank you,
to
Michelle.
give us the first, the takeaway from this as a way of encouragement to the people who have been listening.
Feed your soul. Whatever your soul becomes really fat with happiness, do that and do it a lot, because what better time than to really invest in the things that matter. And the things that matter don't cost money. They cost your attention. They want you to be present in this moment. And I feel like this is an opportunity. Every crisis is a dangerous opportunity, as the Chinese character says for it. So this is a dangerous opportunity for us. And how will we look back and say, this is what I took this time to do, to learn, to be? And that's what I would leave you with.
Awesome. Elizabeth, it's been a joy. I love listening to you. I feel like I get wisdom so much. And thank you for being here today. And thank you for being part of the design team. I will share a little bit about the community cafe, just a little story that Elizabeth mentioned, Janelle Nelson shared with us. And I may have mentioned it in a previous episode, but a woman who was in the community cafe, actually living in Spokane, and it was a 6-state cafe, if you remember Nicole, our guest, and she shared about being part of a series on resilience that Elizabeth mentioned, resilience, and that she had lost hope, but through this cafe, through being connected, as Elizabeth said, found hope. And now she's back on her journey. And it took her a while, just like Elizabeth said, but she was connected to that group. And finding connection is an important step. So thank you, Elizabeth, for reassuring us about how we can go and be stronger and have hope. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, Michelle.